We traveled just over 2,500 miles from Central Virginia to Shelby, Montana, to pick up my brother to take over primary driving duties of our 2004 Toyota Land Cruiser on our way to the wilderness of Alaska and ultimately inside the Arctic Circle. We crossed the border into Canada at Sweetgrass. Filming at the border is neither welcomed or recommended, so we are picking up our story as we're heading north into Canada with myself behind the wheel of our brand new 2019 GX460 and my wife riding shotgun with two of our children in the back rounding out the passenger list. As we took in the never-before-seen sights, we got down to business on what was really important as the day was winding down. Where are we stopping for dinner?
After eating dinner and rolling into Calgary after midnight looking for an easy place to sleep, we found ourselves at breakfast the next morning wiping the sleep out of our eyes, while we waited on Rob's brother Paul to make an appearance so we could roll to Banff to explore. We didn't know it yet, but we were going to have far more time to explore Banff than we ever imagined. But more on that after we catch up with Paul over breakfast, which was quickly turning into lunch, more so than breakfast.
Tell us what's going on.
I'm tired.
Yeah, I can see you're tired. Why are you so tired?
Travel is tiring,
Well,
but it's exciting. We can see the mountains today.
yeah, we're going to do something you really wanted to do.
Any
Very
mountains
much.
on the train?
Not this one, not really.
No?
They don't pick up until after Shelby.
Oh,
Okay.
Like the exciting part of the Empire Builder train
Yeah.
is after I got off.
Yeah. I think we're going to need some more enthusiasm because this was a big part of the trip that you were looking forward to is Banff.
It is.
Am I saying that right? Banff?
Banff? I think
Banff?
so.
Okay.
I think it is.
Yeah. Anyways, you're up. You're awake now.
I'm awake enough.
All right.
The sugar will help.
If you need a relief driver today, you need to let us know.
I will.
All right.
We have plenty of drivers.
Good.
Yes.
And now we're just waiting on him to have a sandwich.
Yes.
Once we finished our breakfast, I mean lunch, or was it breakfast? None of that really matters, I guess. What is important is that once we hopped in our rigs after our meal to start heading off to Banff, our brand new 2019 GX460 build was making an awful noise that appeared to be coming from the front diff. As my wife described it, she would tell you that it sounded like a broken warp drive that wanted to go, but couldn't. After making a call to Pete at Mainline Overland, he recommended we find a shop to take a closer look at it, given we were now 3,000 miles from home and popping in on MLO wasn't an option, nor was trying to fully diagnose it in a random parking lot. That is where we pick up the rest of this story as we check in with the gear shop on the eve of Easter weekend. When we showed up at the gear shop, the crew was more than willing to lend us a hand with us being so far from home despite being booked solid for the next few weeks. After working us in for a diagnostic between appointments, the gear shop team, with Nathan at the helm, gave us a breakdown of what they believed to be the problem and a plan to get us back on the road to Alaska. The biggest hurdle we were running into was it was Easter weekend, and getting parts shipped in from the US over a holiday weekend wasn't looking promising. In addition, and completely understandably, the shop crew had travel plans with family, meaning the shop was going to be closed for a few days. We are a firm believer in family being important, and we would never ask someone to prioritize work over family, so we came up with a plan to get us back on the road in a week, which was more than fair given the circumstances. Plus, if we were going to be stuck somewhere for a week, there are far worse places to be than 45 minutes outside of the Canadian Rockies, with our ever-reliable 100 Series Land Cruiser available to us to go exploring in.
I'm just gonna call Natural Beer right now. Okay. So I can still get them on the phone, and if they can ship out today, that means we have it by Monday.
Okay, well, let's do that.
Let's see if I can do that. All I need to do from you is what kind of gear ratio? 4 to 8.
After leaving the GX at the gear shop to be repaired, we made our way approximately an hour outside of Calgary to the town of Canmore, where we found an available rental home to settle into for the week. Wow, what an amazing view.
Upon waking the following morning, we fueled up the 100 Series and set off to explore the early spring Canadian Rockies. They did not disappoint in the least. A week later, we came down from the mountains to arrive back at the gear shop in Calgary as they were finishing up the repairs on our rig. The team was absolutely exhausted after having stayed up all night to complete the repairs, with the parts having shown up late the prior day. While there was still a fair amount of work to do when we arrived, the upside was we were able to observe the later stages of the repair and gain valuable knowledge that we hope we never need, but will be invaluable should we ever have to deal with a major break on the trail 250 miles from nowhere.
If you look closely, you might spot a well-known rig in the background from the Instagram world. Richard from Desk to Glory was in the shop filming a piece on upgrades being performed to his rig before it heads out on its next adventure. It was a special treat for us meeting Richard and hearing all about his and Ashley's adventures on the road.
We will be ever grateful to Nathan and the team at the gear shop for getting us back on the road as quickly as they humanly could. While we didn't plan to be stuck in Calgary for a week, they helped us to make the best of it, and we enjoyed the time we spent with them and the area in general. Living in the shadows of Banff doesn't seem like such a bad thing, and if ended up stuck there permanently, I think we'd survive just fine. As a side note, if you ever happen to be in the gear shop for any reason, be sure to bring Nathan's father, who hangs out there, a pie. He's a wonderful man to talk to and learn from, and happens to also have a thing for good old-fashioned pie. Given that we were now a week behind our planned schedule, our immediate goal was focused solely on making it to the Alaska Highway as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, given we had a new gear set in the GX, we had a painfully slow drive for the first 500 miles, being sure not to exceed 45 miles an hour and not driving more than 30 minutes without stopping to let our diff completely cool. To further complicate the process, we had to find a place to change the diff fluid after the first 500 miles. Not an easy task, given we only had one more sizable city along our route before things started to become remote, and that city was only 180 miles away. But before we could worry about any of that and start in earnest, we made our way to our first stop, pulling out of the gear shop for groceries, followed by gas, just 30 minutes down the road, where we took our first diff cooling break. Hey, something that's interesting about up here is that you put your card in, it locks your card, so now let it go of it, but it authorized money, and it asked me how much I wanted to authorize, which is totally different than home. It's like I gotta pick an amount, like how much gas do I think I'm gonna need?
Oh, wow.
And then it authorizes that amount, and then I guess they just then charge what's needed, and they refund the rest. I'm not really sure. Just a different concept.
I would kind of be bad at that. I don't have no concept of gas.
Yeah. And it's in liters. It's just like...
How many liters are almost 4?
Almost 4, right?
I think so.
So what's the price of gas? It's $1.33 per liter. That's premium, but what is that? It's like
$1.33 times 4.
It's $4 plus another, it's almost $5.
And that's Canadian.
That is Canadian, yeah.
So then you have to
So
multiply
roughly
that
30
times 0.8.
Roughly,
Is it
it's
0.8
closer to
I
like
thought?
30. I don't know. I thought it was like $1.33, roughly.
Okay.
So about 30% less. I don't know. What is that?
Different.
Yeah,
It's just different.
It's just different. Yeah. We can sit here and do the math. Oh, what difference does it make?
Gotta get the gas,
Gotta get
right?
gas. I'm certainly not price shopping on gas right now.
No. And my golly, it's like what, 65 out here?
62, my watch says.
62 now?
Yeah.
Nice breeze.
Gorgeous.
Several hours later, and far fewer miles down the road than you might imagine, it was time yet again for another diff cooling cycle. So we took the opportunity to grab some dinner while we waited on the side of a sleepy road washed by the setting sun.
don't know if y'all can hear that or not. That's the wind howling. It's super windy. We are on Route 43 coming out of Edmonton right now. It's about 8:15 at night, still a lot of daylight. I don't think the sun's supposed to set until 9:05. That's what my watch is telling me. So I wish I got almost another hour of daylight, especially with last light. But the Edmonton. So we stopped in Edmonton today. We started our break-in procedure on our diff yesterday. Got it, mostly done. We got into where did we stay last night? Red Deer.
Red Deer.
Got most of our break-in done going between Calgary and Red Deer. But we got up this morning. I got up early. Didn't sleep much because it's so late we got in. And then I got up early, and we took turns taking shifts, running the GX out and doing the break-in procedure on it. And then we finished the break-in procedure heading into Edmonton. And we got there, got to the Edmonton Lexus dealer, and basically went in and fell at the service desk, and I said, I'm at your mercy, but can you guys please squeeze us in and get our diff fluid swapped out for us, which they did do. They actually took us right in, which was awesome. They were very busy, but of course all the techs in the shop came out to goggle. What's I don't know. Google, not Google. I don't know what the term is. What's the term I'm looking for?
Gawk?
Gawk.
Maybe
Yes,
gawk?
gawk. I think that is the term I'm looking for. Gawk at the GX. Obviously, they don't see those in there too often, if ever. At least not in this build. When I first rolled it into the garage, a bunch of them came out, and they said when we first saw this roll in, we thought it was all for show, and then we started actually looking at it, and they were like, wow, this thing is the real deal. And I was like, yeah, it's a pretty nice truck. So we talked a little bit about it, and it gets looks everywhere we go, and people want to talk about it. We spent a lot of time talking about this so far. Anyways, back on track. They went ahead and swapped out the diff fluid for us. Fluid looked fantastic. A little bit dirty as expected, but everything very, very fine in terms of material, and there wasn't much of it. So that was all great. I think we're in good shape. I'm still kind of babying it just a little bit, just because I think I'm still a little bit gun shy after what happened. But after a good cool down again tonight, I think tomorrow I'll start hammering it a little bit harder. I haven't, the winds are just so vicious. It's, I really have to be going harder than I want to really even do the speed limit. And we're well under the speed limit right now, which is slowing us down a little bit. So I'd like to get back on that tomorrow if possible. But yeah, headed to Grand Prairie and Alaskan Highway tomorrow. Cool stuff. Yeah. After what was apparently such a good night's sleep, the need for dance was inspired. We fueled up and set our sights on making it to the Alaska Highway. But before we could get on the road in earnest, we had to make one more quick stop on the way out of town. UPS store, we just boxed up some crap and shipped it back because space is more valuable than money right now. I think I just paid something like $160 Canadian to ship my brother's underwear and old beat up boots that probably should have gone in a trash can back. And I shipped them to my daughter because I had to ship it to someone other than my name. So she's going to get a box here at home in probably the next week or two that she's going to open and think, oh, I got a gift.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a gift.
She got my brother's underwear and shoes.
Hey, it's a good
Awesome.
gift.
A few more hours down the road and over 3,000 miles from home, we had finally reached what we had been dreaming about since deciding to make this trip. The start of the official Alaska Highway that would carry us out of Canada and into the wilds of Alaska. We cannot wait to make our way down it and take it all in.
The Alaska Highway was constructed during World War II to connect the lower 48 states to Alaska through Canada. It begins in Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and runs to Delta Junction, Alaska, through Whitehorse in the Yukon. As we headed down the early miles of the 1,387 total mile route to Alaska, dusk turned to dark. And for the first time since we'd left home, things were starting to feel remote, giving us a glimpse of what Alaska itself would have in store for us. With the lack of other traffic on the highway and the abundantly large wildlife we were spotting both on and just off the road, it was a perfect opportunity to get some use out of our auxiliary lights to brighten our way.
Approximately 5 hours down the road, and just after midnight, we encountered a welcome oasis known as the Northern Rockies Lodge, where we got ourselves rooms and laid our heads down to replay the events of the day as we peacefully drifted off to sleep. When we awoke in the morning, we were treated to the most spectacular views as we wandered the property a bit, ate breakfast, and wandered the property a bit more before getting back on the road headed to Alaska.
As we continued our way down the Alaska Highway, we eventually crossed over into the Yukon Territory. It was an exciting moment, as it was one more milestone down as we crept ever closer to the border of Alaska.
What do boys in the Yukon do to stretch their legs before settling back in for another long drive? They challenge each other to a rock hurdling contest, of course. Try as we might, in the end, some of us are 6 feet tall, and some of us are not. Our next stop along the way was in Watson Lake for what is likely the most famous stop on the Alaska Highway. The Signpost Forest is a collection of signs dating as far back as 1942, when the first sign was added by Private Carl K. Lindley of the 341st Army of Engineers, and has now surpassed over 80,000 signs as visitors have passed through over the years to add to the collection.
On the edge of town, as we were headed out of Watson Lake, we spotted a lone woman hitchhiking on the side of the Alaska Highway. Normally, we steer clear of picking up hitchhikers as a general rule of safety. But something told us we should probably stop to lend her, her belongings, and her dog a ride a bit further down the road, so that is what we did.
Maya.
Yeah. Okay. So Maya, so we picked you up in, where the heck were we?
Watson Lake, outside of Watson Lake.
Right, because you were just traveling from Edmonton, you told us, the
right.
last couple of days.
Right.
And you're headed off to Whitehorse.
Correct.
Okay, just traveling the road.
Yeah, hitchhiking. I'm doing this 19 years.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah, and probably 20 times or more up and down this highway. It's my favorite one in Canada.
20 times in this highway, yeah.
It's
beautiful.
How many in the U.S. have you done?
I can't.
Quite a bit too. Well, 19 years U.S. and Canada. So, and I've been a lot up in Alaska, so this is the main route to go.
Yeah. Now, do you live up here, or where do you base?
No, I'm from Germany, so I'm just a
You're
visitor
just all over.
here, and I'm a visitor in the States. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm just a nomad.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends.
Sounds like you. Yeah. This is what you want to do.
I think about it.
Okay, cool.
I definitely think about it.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's
I don't know. I'm not dealing with the cold too well.
doing this. Toughen up, man. Here,
You can
get-
nomad
fix your
anywhere.
collar. There you go.
All right.
Cool. Yeah.
And we got your dog too.
Yeah, your dog.
And Ross is from the Yukon.
Oh, okay.
He's actually from Ross River, from a community originally. Was a stray dog, and they wanted to shoot all the strays. And so he's one of the survivors. Ended up in Whitehorse for 3.5 years, and I guess I didn't want him, and I got him now because he looked like my female dog from South Dakota that I had, and she just died before I got him.
Oh.
So yeah, he's going home now.
Going
For a
home.
trip.
Excellent. Well, let's get back on the road to Whitehorse.
Yeah, let's go. Six hours later, we reached our destination of Whitehorse for the evening, where we dropped off our passenger, her dog, and her belongings. As we unpacked her belongings, we discovered among them what had been frozen moose meat. Yes, I said moose meat. Moose meat that was no longer frozen and leaking blood and making quite the mess. Seeing as it was about time to wash our rigs anyway, we made our way to the local car wash and started washing inside and out. Although it was a bit more cleaning than we might have normally done, the extended break at the car wash had its upside, which was an opportunity to let the goofy out after a long day on the road.
After a good night's sleep, we took a slow morning to catch up on some much-needed gym time, along with other important tasks to keep ourselves looking and feeling as good as possible as we made our long-awaited entry into Alaska. So that's the Kluane range in front of us. Don't quote me on the pronunciation.
Yeah, we believe that's how it's pronounced. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's just, we're coming in and it's like all the trees and we've not been to Alaska before, but just the backdrop to us seems very iconic to Alaska. And we're not quite there yet. I mean, we're still, what were we discussing, about 200 miles from the border, we think?
I think roughly.
Yeah, but you can just tell, I mean, the landscape is just awesome. It's, I don't know, it looks different than Banff.
Oh, way different, I guess.
The mountains have a lot more snow on them, and they're a lot more jagged, maybe?
Definitely very pointy.
But it's cool, and just you couldn't really see it because we were just, we were coming up over, but you're just kind of looking down, and it's just a sea of trees and the mountains in the background. Just super cool. It's like a painting.
Yeah.
It's really neat. It's beautiful.
It's definitely what I expected to see from Alaska.
And it's not bitter cold. It's 46 degrees, the car is saying, but it just like it feels cold, right?
Yeah, it
I
definitely
think
feels
just seeing the
cold.
landscape, and it's so desolate, and there's not really any other people around. We're not seeing very many cars at all, and just looking at those mountains, that how bitter cold it must be at the top of them. It just makes you feel cold.
The road has definitely gotten a little rougher since we left the last big city.
Whitehorse, since we left Whitehorse.
Whitehorse, yeah. Very cool. I'm not disappointed with the views. The final miles out of Canada had been nothing short of absolutely epic. And then just like that, we were in Alaska. It's hard to put into words the emotion we all felt as we took in the gravity of standing in the great state of Alaska for the first time for any of us. No matter if we were in our teens or our 40s. It was a mixture of joy, disbelief, and accomplishment all at the same time. Even though we still had a huge trek in front of us into one of the most remote areas of North America, we were one huge step closer to our end ultimate goal. Next stop will be the Dalton Highway that will carry us into the Arctic Circle. 380 miles, and 24 hours later, after crossing the border into Alaska, we reached the start of the Dalton Highway. The James W. Dalton Highway is a 414-mile route that begins north of Fairbanks and ends in Deadhorse. The highway is considered to be one of the most isolated roads in North America and is mainly used to haul equipment up to the oil fields of Prudhoe Bay, which sits on the Arctic Ocean. The road itself is mostly gravel, very primitive in places, but also has some paved sections that range from worse and more rutted than gravel to smooth and fast, making you forget you're in the middle of nowhere. Anyone embarking on a journey on the Dalton is encouraged to bring survival gear, as the remote location, lack of cell service, and ever-changing weather conditions, including seasonal avalanches coming through the Brooks Range, can turn deadly. The road has been featured as part of a World's Most Dangerous Road series, as well as Ice Road Truckers. We cannot wait to experience it for ourselves, so let's get to it.
Approximately 60 miles down the Dalton, we crossed the early spring and still frozen Yukon River. The Yukon River runs 1,980 miles from northwest Canada to the Bering Sea. The E.L. Patton Bridge, that is part of the Dalton Highway, is the only bridge in Alaska that crosses the Yukon River.
"60 miles north of the Yukon River is official entry inside the Arctic Circle. It marks the northernmost point at which the center of the noon sun is just visible on the December solstice, and the southernmost point at which the center of the midnight sun is just visible on the June solstice. But who cares about the technical definition? We were super stoked to have reached it as another milestone of our goal to drive as far north as it was possible to drive in North America.
All right, Arctic Circle, right here, very cool. I don't know how many years ago we started talking about coming here, but a long while. So pretty cool, glad to have finally made it. It's been a pretty exhausting journey so far, all the way from Virginia, but it's cool, it's great to be here, yeah, kind of, you know, and honestly, the drive has not been that bad on Dalton so far. I kept hearing how bad, you know, kind of treacherous, dangerous road this was. A lot of potholes, gravel, there's some heaves, but, you know, if you drive easy, it's not really been a big deal. But we'll see. Maybe north of here is going to get a lot worse. We hope our children carry on the spirit of adventure into their own adult lives and bring their own children back one day to let them leave their mark on Alaska, just as they were able to do as children themselves. There are 3 opportunities for gas along the Dalton Highway, and when your rigs get 12 miles per gallon on a good day, you need every one of them. Unfortunately, given the time of year we are traveling, only 2 stops were open, meaning we had to carry extra fuel and be our own station. A little ironic when you are driving parallel to the Trans-Alaska Pipeline for over 400 miles.
Coldfoot Camp is 175 miles down the Dalton Highway. It was founded as Slate Creek in 1898 when stampeders rushed the area for gold. But its name was changed to Coldfoot when prospectors got cold feet due to the harsh winter and retreated south. Today it serves as a welcome oasis to those who travel to Dalton, offering fuel, a warm, dry place to sleep, and food. While the accommodations might not be fancy, they are clean, cozy, and a 5-star resort compared to sleeping outside in the muck in still quite cold spring weather. After a much-needed good night's rest and a fantastic hot breakfast, we topped off our fuel and set our sights northward for the Brooks Range and on to Deadhorse across the open tundra. Words to describe the solitude and beauty of what it's like crossing into the Brooks Range, headed north into the tundra, escape us. So the best thing we can do is to let you experience the visuals for yourself.
Beyond the Brooks Range, the landscape becomes open Arctic tundra where there is nothingness. Just miles and miles of nothingness, all the way to Deadhorse where the Dalton Highway ends and you can drive no further north in North America. And then without much warning, the nothingness turned into something, and we were at the end of the Dalton Highway, sitting in Deadhorse. Deadhorse is an unincorporated community at the end of the Dalton Highway. It has a permanent population somewhere between 25 to 50 residents. But with temporary residents added in, the population can swell as high as 5,000 when you include the oil industry workers who fly in and out as the need dictates. All right, we made it. This is Deadhorse in all its glory. At the end of the Dalton Highway, there was a stop sign, and that was it. That was the end of the road. So we are now trying to decide what to do. We went by the tour company to find out if we could beg and plead, if there's any way to get a tour early. That's all controlled apparently by the companies that own the land. Is that BP? I don't know. I think it's BP. Yeah. When I guess there's like a lease, when you can get on there. They told me that the tour company, I did talk to them, they basically hire like a private security provided from BP, and they pay for them, I guess, something like that. So I drove to the gate knowing that they would not let me in, but just to inquire if there was any possibility of us doing that privately, hiring, one of their guards to escort us. I was told firm no. We had our passports taken, our driver's license taken, our registration retaken, photocopies made, a lot of questioning.
We're on a list.
I guess we're on a list now. They told me that was standard procedure. You show up at that gate, you need a lot of documentation about why, what you're doing, what you want, which was all fine. I understand that. There's security, they got to do it. But the answer is no. It's not going to happen. So our choices are fly to Barrow. I'm not completely opposed to that, but it's going to take time. We inquired with Alaska Air. We some private options. It's all going to take like 2 days of turn, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. And lodging is proving to be a challenge right now. We can get lodging. It's just not super ideal for our family. So we don't know what we're going to do. We're talking about potentially driving back down to Dalton and camping.
142 miles would be the answer.
142 miles down, so we're talking about camping, so that's kind of far.
There's other camping before that, though.
Yeah, there is other camping. So anyways, we're going to go strategize and figure out how important it is for us to actually touch the Arctic Ocean. We can almost see it. It's right over that way, I'm told.
I think that's close enough. Look.
You can see it?
See ho!
It's like 5 miles.
Hoi!
It's not
Hoi!
far.
Yeah, it's not even 5 miles. The guy at the gate told me, he showed me some buildings I could see. He says about a mile past those buildings.
Is it?
So, and it's frozen. You can't even really get close to it because it's so frozen.
Yeah.
So,
We need food.
we need to
I'm
eat.
talking about food again, but
Yeah.
we need food.
Yep. Okay.
It's been a hot minute.
So it's 7:30. The sun's not going down. It's like, where is it? I don't know. It's still really high in the sky.
Behind this building.
Yeah.
I'm freezing in the shadow.
Yeah, it is kind of cold. Okay, so we'll update when we figure out what we're doing. We may not get to the Arctic Ocean. That may be a different trip. We were talking about, like, I guess you need some failure for a good adventure so that you can have a different adventure next time. Maybe our next, like, big adventure is we need to drive up to Tuck.
Toyota.
Not on this trip, but on a different trip.
No, probably not in the winter.
And maybe that's what's going to happen. I don't know. We're going to go eat and we're going to think about it. All right. So it's 9:30 at night. Get you tell? Look at that. What is that?
There's weird stuff in the sky up here. I don't know what it is.
It looks cool. Anyways, coming up to Dalton today, we had the sorry, very tired. It's you know,
Toe plug?
the toe plug, the hitch, the 4-pin, the 7-pin adapter, whatever's back there, come loose on the GX and the Land Cruiser both. We arrived here and they're both like dangling under the vehicles. So a bit ago we got in here and we tied them up, zip tied them up back in place. I think I lost some bolts from the GX. It was bolted in place, but this one it was just zip tied up. So apparently when it got re-zip tied up, something was, the plug, the metal in the plug was touching the frame and it was shorting out. And so I noticed my brother jumped in it to drive right after we worked on it, and the reverse lights were on in park and drive. So anyways, after getting back under there, figuring out what had happened, all the reverse lights are like, the dashboard still look like a Christmas tree even though the reverse lights are no longer coming on. So I'm pulling the battery, trying to pull to clear the codes and see if we can get this thing back to working order. If not, more adversity to deal with that we self-caused potentially. So anyways, but hey, we're at the top of the world, kinda. It smells bad. It smells kind of bad out here.
After just a so-so night's sleep and a decent breakfast, we packed up and made our way out to our rigs. It was a little bit of a surreal feeling, as we had been doing nothing but driving north for a month since leaving Virginia, and now here we were, 6,000 miles from home and about to do a 180 to head south and start getting closer to home instead of further from it.
The morning felt fitting for such an extreme place weather-wise as we rolled out with cloudy skies, fog, and freezing temperatures to remind us of where we actually were. Before we rolled out of town and back down to Dalton, we sought out an opportunity to wash some of the dirt off of our rigs, Alaska style, using a $2 million wash that does everything from passenger vehicles to semi-trucks in a matter of seconds. And can we all just take a moment to appreciate how awesome that undercarriage wash is?
Pulling out of Deadhorse, the next focus of our trip was getting ourselves back to the lower 48 in time for Overland West. We had lost a week in Calgary due to the diff repair and were starting to feel the pressure of it looking at the calendar. In an attempt to make up a day, we decided to make a run from Deadhorse all the way to Fairbanks in one massive 500-mile, 14-hour, one-day trek down the Dalton and back into the civilization of Fairbanks. We took care of the important stuff, like 2 a.m. dinner at Denny's.
After a bit of sleep, we packed up to make the drive to Anchorage. Along the route to Anchorage is Denali National Park. While we did encounter a few downsides to being in Alaska in the early spring, such as finding gasoline, we were about to add an upside. There's a 1-week period between the park roads being cleared and the official opening of the park, where visitors to the park are allowed to drive on the park roads an additional 15 miles further into the park than they normally are at any other time of the year, with very few park visitors around. It was a special treat that we just happened to time such that we could enjoy that little extra look at the park. And then it was on to Anchorage to sort out getting back to the lower 48. All right, trip planning meeting time.
Wow.
Let's get ourselves up to speed. So, got the Lexus and the Toyota this morning, and the fluids changed. So they're all set. Next 5,000 miles for an oil change. I got the front diff fluid swapped out one more time. Looked good. We did have a leaking seal. Took care of that. So after that, took the Lexus to the port and I put it on a ship. And it's going to arrive in Seattle on the 9th or the 8th, something like that. So that's what's going on with that. The Land Cruiser, my brother over here is going to drive it back from Anchorage. He decided to go that route. He's not going as far west as we are, so it kind of makes sense for him to do what he's doing. So he's going to meander his way back up through Canada. I'm not really sure what path he's taking yet. I don't know if he's figured that out. You know what you're doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Get us up to speed real quick.
I'm gonna take. So the way we came in, Alaska Highway. Take that down through Calgary. Hit.
So you're gonna do Calgary again. You're gonna go through Banff, all that.
I don't know if I'm gonna go through Banff. I'm thinking about going through Banff, but what I'm really gonna do is I'm gonna surprise my friend Steven, who lives in Saskatchewan.
Edmonton. Oh, is that near Edmonton?
No, it's east of there. He lives in Regina.
Okay.
So he won't see this, so it'll be a surprise. It'll
be a surprise, yeah.
About 8 days or so.
This will be a while before this ends up on YouTube, so it'll be a surprise. Okay, so that's what you're doing with the Hunter series. You're going to have that back home for us by the end of May. What are we doing? We just booked plane tickets on flight out of Anchorage at 12:30 tonight.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
guess what you're doing later?
I'm
Yeah.
driving you to the airport.
I'm gonna need a ride to the airport.
All
So
right.
we're all getting on a plane. And then we will be landing at about 5 a.m.
Seattle time.
Seattle time, which is an hour behind where we are now. So it's going to feel like 4 in the morning to us. I don't know how much sleep or how tired we're going to end up being. But bonus, we're going to be in Seattle for like a week. So
With no car, so.
with no car. Yeah, so we got to find a place to stay and all that stuff. So you go with that, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're all looking a little ragged, so it'll be good. We'll get some rest. We'll rest up, get ourselves prepped up for Overland West. It'll be good. It'll be a good time.
They have a zoo.
Seattle has a zoo. They probably have a water park too, because I know I always still eat a water park.
Yeah, you do.
Yep. So we'll figure that out. We'll find a nice place to stay. We'll hang out in Seattle for a week. We'll pick up the GX at the port. I was going to film that earlier. Not allowed. Security. So you'll just have to take my word for it. I drove it to a port and I left it with some people. And it's going to apparently make its way onto a ship. It's got my bike on it and everything. So that's it. That's the little update for what's going on right now. So we are now going to feverishly pack. I guess not that feverishly. It's 5:40. We don't have to be there to work till probably 11.
We're going to feed you.
I got to eat. Yeah. I've barely eaten today.
Yeah.
I'm pretty hungry. And we got to figure out how to pack all this stuff. And kind of stupidly, we could have fit more into GX. We were just like in such a rush because I had like an hour to get it from the dealer to the port and through security and all that other stuff for it to make the boat so that it will show up there for us next week. So it was a mad rush. We basically just stripped it of everything that was in it, threw it in the Land Cruiser, and now we have all this stuff, and we're sitting here and we're like, wow, this would have made some sense if we just left this stuff in the Lexus, and then it would be there for us. But they did also have some stuff about personal items being in there, so I don't know if we're running into problems with that too. Who knows?
Yeah. It's done now.
But it's done now. So anyways, that's it.
Promptly at 11, we took our last ride in the Land Cruiser before Paul was about to make his solo drive all the way back to Virginia, and we were about to magically knock 2,500 miles of driving off of the trip with a few hours of flying. We checked our luggage, made our way to the gate, and hopped a flight reflecting on all we had seen and done, but now looking forward to making our way down to Flagstaff for Overland West.
We just landed in Seattle. We're exhausted. What time is it?
4:30ish.
4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So we've been up since, I don't know, 8 o'clock, something like that. So we're pretty exhausted. We're trying to find a taxi, gonna get us a hotel, get some sleep, and then I'm dropping my bag. There it goes. So, anyway, the struggle. Yeah. It's hard when you're tired. But,
I'm tired. I think it's adrenaline.
you think it's adrenaline?
Yeah.
From what?
I don't know.
Just
the
being awake?
excitement,
The
yeah.
excitement? Okay.
I'm pretty
So anyways, left my brother in Anchorage. He's making a beeline back for Virginia. It's still 4,500 miles. It's a lot of driving. We got the GX 460 on a boat. It's gonna meet us here in less than a week. And we're gonna hang out in Seattle for a few days. First, we're gonna get some sleep, so we're on our way to a hotel.
Have to go down the floor. Okay, stick with us here because we're about to do some serious fast forwarding. After spending 5 days in Seattle, we picked up the GX and headed southeast across Washington, clipped Oregon, crossed Idaho, and ended up in Salt Lake City for a few days, where our kids asked if they could cut the trip short and fly home without us.
We're going home.
Going home. Where are you going?
I'm going to Las Vegas.
No, you're not. Yeah. You're passing that up to go home.
Yeah.
Alright, what you gonna do? You watch out for your sister. That's your job. Got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Then, without the kids, we headed to Vegas for a night. Next, we drove rally cars, because, yeah, rally cars. Moving on from there, we headed east across Route 66, headed towards Flagstaff, where we would pick up an awesome camping spot we found along the way with some opportunity to explore.
Using the iOverland app, we found a great camping spot right off of Route 66. It was a left turn, drive 90 plus minutes through not so technical trails, and set up camp for the evening. We did not see another soul from the time we turned off of Route 66 until the next morning when we turned back onto Route 66. It was a nice change of pace having been in Vegas the night prior. I wish we could remember the name of it, but whoops! We didn't write it down or mark it on a map, so I guess you'll have to find it for yourself.
We continued to meander our way across Arizona, exploring and camping until we reached Expo West. What can we say about Expo West? It was our first time at the expo, and we were amazed at the sheer size of it. Tens of thousands of visitors a day and a never-ending sea of vendors with cool products. Mainline Overland invited us to show the GX460 build-off in their booth, so we took them up on it and shared the space with Mac and Owen from Bound for Nowhere. What we learned from that experience of talking with them and seeing the endless visitors that they had is this. Being a popular YouTuber is exhausting. Good thing we are so bad at it and never have to worry about such things.
Pulling out of Expo West, we started making our way back north, exploring along the way with a stop at the Mexican Hat Formation, which we'd never seen in person before. It's a pretty cool spot. Next, we headed to Moab to do some more exploring. We've been to Moab before, but it has so much to offer it would take years to see all of it, so we always look forward to coming back to see something new.
Okay, so at this point, we've been on the road for nearly 2 months, and all of our kids were at home with only supervision from Grandpa, which, truthfully, he himself could use supervision most of the time, so things were getting a little Lord of the Flies, and we needed to get home for a bit. We parked the GX in Salt Lake City and flew home. While at home, we hiked. We bought a Tacoma we planned to build, hiked some more, and hiked some more, and hiked some more, and then, a month later, flew back to Salt Lake City where we picked up the GX and headed straight to where you most often see them, Starbucks.
Parking the GX, we started meandering our way back to Virginia, exploring as we found the opportunity. Tokerville Falls in Utah made for a nice excursion and camping for the night.
Moving east, we made another trip to Moab for lunch at my favorite place in the U.S. to eat, the Peace Tree Cafe. And then we headed out into the wide open spaces just east of Moab for more exploring and to find a place to camp for the night. The next morning, we awoke in complete solitude, ate breakfast, and made a hard charge for Colorado.
The last off-pavement exploring of our trip was in Colorado. It was a fitting place to spend our last night camping as we prepared to burn up the highway heading back to our home in Virginia. The clean, crisp air of the 10,000 feet plus of elevation, the cool temperatures, and the solitude was a great place for us to reflect on the trip as a whole. For when we would arrive back in Virginia 2 days later, we would have driven over 13,000 miles and barely touched the tip of what this wonderful country has to offer in terms of exploring off the pavement. We shared just a little bit of all the wonderful sights we laid our eyes on and just a little bit of what happened in between on this trip. We are still learning about this overland lifestyle, but we are hooked on it, and it's just one of many adventures still to come for us. Where we will explore next, we don't know, but giving it thought is a big part of the joy of the journey before it has even begun. So as we lay our heads down each night, we dream of that joy. Thanks for joining us, and we hope after watching our adventure, you share the same dream as we do as you now rest your head each night.